Welcome in, everybody, back to the All Things NBA from A to Z podcast presented by Ball is Life. I'm Kris Persianen, excited to be here alongside Albert Nguyen and Zach Noble. Guys, it's the best time of year to be NBA podcasters, to be NBA fans, to be basketball fans. The WNBA season is in swing. Asia Wilson is playing legendarily. And the NBA finals are upon us. They start tonight, Thursday, June 6th. Y'all, it's the Boston Celtics and the Dallas Mavericks. In today's episode, we're going to get into talking about the series, some light storyline talk, but some X's and O's too. The biggest swing factor, who we think wins and how many games, who we think gets that finals MVP. And we'll even throw in our game one predictions at the end of the show in case you want that betting angle for tonight if you're a sicko, or if you just want our G1 predictions. Al, you are a Dallas Mavericks fan. I have to start with you. What does this feel like? I'm not going to ask you why you're excited for this series because I know your blood pressure is probably through the roof because of it. What's this like for you right now?
No, thank you for having me on. Super excited. This first NBA Finals for Dallas Mavericks in 13 years, right? They won in 2011, they lost in 2006. Those were the two mountaintops. I think the thing I'm most excited about is really Luka Doncic being on the biggest stage of basketball, right? We've seen him do this in, previous postseason runs, right? We've seen some great individual performances. In the bubble against the Clippers, they lost that. They lost against the Clippers the year following. They also had the nice Western Conference Finals run where Jalen Brunson had the breakout party. So there was a lot of history already in the last 3, 4 years. Oh, he's also been amazing on the international stage, right? During Euros, during international basketball, he's doing so much for Slovenia, him and Goran Dragic. But this is the biggest stage of basketball, no matter how you cut it, whether it's Olympics, whether it's, college basketball finals. The NBA finals is what everybody watches. This is where over 200 different countries come to Boston, come to Dallas to broadcast the show. This is a true international event. And I'm happy for Luka to show his skills. Hopefully he's super healthy. I mean, he looked really good against Minnesota. He didn't look great against Oklahoma City. So physically, I hope he's up there close to 100%. And I hope, he gives Boston a competitive series. We'll get into some of our picks and some of our angles, but I think it's clearly going to be Luka's series from a statistical standpoint. He's most likely going to be the leading scorer. He's definitely going to be the leading assist guy. I think it's between him and Tatum to be the rebounds guy. So, in theory, he might lead the series in points, rebounds, assists, and three-pointers made. It's his. So if he plays well, Dallas has a fighting chance. I guess that's my 2 cents. We'll get into it more, but I'm excited just to see Luka on the biggest stage to share his talents to the rest of the world.
I love it. Zach, I like to
Yep.
get on you for this. You're a weird guy. You're in Minnesota. You've got two Wolves jerseys up, but you love the Boston Celtics. Something's wrong with you. But anyway, talk about why you're excited for this series. What is most exciting to you about this NBA Finals matchup?
Yeah, I honestly only have like a old school Larry Bird jersey. I probably have a IT jersey. Yeah, I didn't stop really collecting jerseys a few years ago. But anyways, lived out in Boston 3.5 years, fell in love with the team, went to Game 5 2018, saw LeBron courtside, and the environment in there was just incredible. Um, Ever since then, I mean, I've counted them as my second team and give me a little passion and juice behind it. But I'm also a big Luca fan. He took my boy. I've loved him since before he came in the league, and I think the star power's there. And now we got two teams playing at their peak. So I mean, this is an ultimate NBA Finals for me. It really is. I think all the storylines are there from a historical perspective. Also, I mean, two coaches that have been really criticized throughout their careers, up and down. So they got a lot going for them. I think there's um, I mean, Dallas is a good fan base, but Boston, I mean, is as good as they get. I mean, there's so much on the line. I mean, sure, you get the Knicks and the Lakers, but I mean, I'd say it's just the Knicks that can compete with them from a fan base perspective. Kris, I see you nodding your head there, but no, I just think this is going to be incredible, whether it's 6 games, 5 games, 7 games. Either way it goes, I think I'd be shocked if there's too many blowouts. I think there's enough talent on both sides to keep most of these games close. And Celtics aren't a team necessarily that blow out the best teams, and they can also just be streaky at times. So I think that just opens the door up for a lot of excitement and a lot of swings. Um, I think overall, yeah, you got your top 2 guys on both sides that everybody's looking out for, but I do think the role players are going to be really critical in this series. I do think the coaching matchup is going to be really critical. So I think there's so many storylines you can go with this. There's so many angles you can attack the series. It's not just Luka needs 40 points, Tatum needs to go for 35, and whoever duels it out wins. No, I don't feel that at all. I think Kyrie Irving could almost be the leading scorer here, and they could end up still winning. I mean, if it's close, Luka's got to be close in points. Jaylen Brown, though, could be 10 points higher than Jason Tatum, and the Celtics win. I truly believe that. So I think there's a lot of swing this can go, and I'm excited to watch this play out.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the role players super important. I mean, I'm very excited for this NBA Finals. Obviously, the storylines like we talked about with ESPN's Dave McMenamin, Kyrie Irving against his former team, Kristaps Porzingis against his former team, both of them with unceremonious exits from that team, and guys like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum have something to prove. Luka Doncic, it reminds me, we talk about this all the time, right, y'all? Like, okay, a player is talked about as someone who's really good, but overrated and can't make the conference finals, can't make the finals, has never won a championship. All of a sudden, things break their way in the playoffs. They put in the work, they win the championship, and they're the consensus best player in the world. We saw it happen with Giannis Antetokounmpo when he defeated the Phoenix Suns. We saw it happen with Nikola Jokic just last year. And this year, I thought maybe it was Embiid's turn. I should have been looking out west. Luka Doncic now has a chance to be the probably. I think there's going to be people arguing he's better than Jokic. People like to conflate potential with the present. And this might be Luka's turn to win the chip and be seen as the best player in the world by the national media. There's a lot going on here, and Jason Tatum probably won't be seen as the best player in the world, even if they do win. And there are a whole slew of reasons for that. But what I will say is I'm very excited for this NBA Finals. I don't have a vested interest in either team winning, and I love that because it's going to be like, you flip a coin to decide something, and you try to think about like which side of the coin you see yourself hoping it lands on. I think I'm just gonna find out who I'm rooting for once the game one starts. Like I have no idea who I would like to see
It's
win.
awesome.
I'm just rooting for 7 games of great basketball. That said, I want to get into something you were just touching on, Zach, and it's the biggest swing factor in this series. Before we give our predictions for what we think will happen, you can't give a prediction without acknowledging the major factor or factors that could swing this series in either direction. For me, and I'll be glad to start off here, I think it's Dallas's role players, right? The difference between Derrick Jones Jr. going 0 of 2 from 3 in a game and 3 of 5 from 3 or 2 of 4 from 3 in a game is gargantuan because of what it does in regards to creating space for Doncic and Irving. I'm going to be greedy here. I'm going to take that duo of Luka and Kyrie for granted. I'm going to say they're going to make the tough shots. They're going to score over the reach of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum and Kristaps Porzingis and Al Horford. They're going to hit tough buckets no matter what. Will PJ Washington nail threes from the corner? Will Derrick Jones Jr. be worth the time on the offensive end of the floor? Will you see Daniel Gafford continuing his ludicrous run of high field goal percentage? Like, will Boston's rim protection stifle that, right? So for me, Dallas's role players are the swing factor in this series because I'm going to take Luka and Kyrie for granted and say it's about the rest of the squad. Boston, you know, if one guy's having an off night, they've got four that can step up. So it's really not a huge deal. Dallas, the more typical build for a contender as of recent, and especially with this new second apron, penalizing world that we're in, where you don't get a mid-level exception, you don't get to do a whole bunch of things. The 3-star build is becoming increasingly unsustainable. I think you're going to see a lot of contenders with the 2-star build and then depth built around that. That's Luka, that's Kyrie. So we'll see. We'll see how this goes. Boston has assembled an incredible roster, but for me, the swing factor because of that is Dallas's depth.
Yeah, I'll go next here. The swing factor, you kind of took mine, Kris, to be honest. I was going to say PJ Washington, but I'll just say fourth quarter execution. Because we know Boston historically had an amazing season. They're beating teams by double digits on average, right? They're beating teams literally by 10 points. That's 4 points clear of second place. They're also making and taking the most threes in the NBA. They made 14.6 and they took 39.8. Dallas quietly made the fifth most threes and took the fifth most 3-point attempts. So they're not that far off from a 3-point attempting team. But with that said, the difference is the defense. Boston only gives up 11.4 threes, which is good for fifth in the NBA. Again, these are regular season stats. With that being said, if it gets close, we know that Dallas has the closers. They have Kyrie Irving, one of the toughest shot makers in the league ever, and they have Luka Doncic, who when he's hot is unguardable. And I think for every single game but two in this postseason has been considered a clutch game for Dallas. So they are battle tested. They've tried, they're true, they know how to execute in the end. Whereas Boston, again, this is not me hating Boston. They just beat teams and beat teams really easily. The games that they won that were considered clutch games, I would say Indiana gave it away, right? They two really bad turnovers there, not fouling Jaylen Brown on the three, just really, really simple bad errors that Indiana made that allowed Boston to win those games. Again, Boston had to still execute, still make the shots, and they deserved to win. But from a comparing the two in terms of being tested in the fourth quarter is night and day. So I want to see how Joe Mazzulla, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and their team really execute in the fourth quarter because I know Kristaps Porzingis is slated to play. I don't think he is healthy enough to be the Kristaps in a regular season. So I don't think he's going to be closing games. That's my opinion. I think Horford is going to be closing games for them.
Zach.
That's a bold take. I like that. I do like I did say in our last live show, take Kristaps unders. I mean, they're still decent numbers, so that's why I think you can go under for this series on those. And playoffs numbers usually go down in general. But with that said, I mean, I'll be shocked if Kristaps is that bad, where you're playing Al Horford over them. So I like the bold prediction there. Al, I mean, you can argue his defense on the perimeter compared to Porzingis. So, I mean, there's it all depends on how much Lively and Gafford play in the fourth quarter, and they only averaged 21 minutes for the playoffs. Their minutes are just so valuable. I would up their minutes quite a bit. One thing we do know, Kyrie and Luka are the fourth quarter closers. I mean, they both together right now are leading like all the stars, 62% true shooting percentage in fourth quarter throughout the playoffs. Tatum and Brown don't really come close to that. I do think the Celtics need to have a decent lead going into the last 5 minutes of games in order to pull them out. Where, I mean, Dallas, I mean, if it's within 5 to 7 points, I think they can pull out most games if as long as those guys are playing how they have been in the fourth quarters. But Boston, I mean, if they're 10 points behind going into a fourth quarter, I won't feel too confident in them. So, I mean, they got to get off to an early hot start. And mainly, I mean, huge third quarters for the Celtics, I'd say, and just play close to 10 points or less in those first two quarters as you open things up. But yeah, I think there's two teams that play at, I mean, I'd say similar pace right now. I don't think either one of them are gonna really screw with the other one pace wise. But yeah, I think defensively, I'm really curious to how the Mavs guard the Celtics. I'm not as intrigued on how the Celtics guard the Mavs because I have a better idea, I think. But something else I'm watching out for is just the match of Celtics on the Mavs defensively.
I hear you. Um, Al, that take about Horford, I think that's going to be really interesting to watch because I could see it. And I know how you feel about guys returning from injury in a big time series, where their best is needed. Um, with that said, the fact that these two coaches both have a lot to prove, Kidd and Missoula, makes me think about, yes, them, but also guys like Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Kristaps, guys like Kyrie Irving, when it comes to how this potential finals win for any of those guys would affect how they're seen all time. And I hate, like, like the meme of like, how will this affect LeBron James's legacy, right? But like, I think we're talking differently about Kyrie Irving, the basketball player, or Jaylen Brown, the basketball player, if they chip up this season, even just as the number two on their team. Are we having a different conversation about Drew Holiday and his all-time standing? Who do we think has the most to gain, the most to lose from this series, whichever way it goes?
I'll take that one first because I think it's interesting. I think the easy answers are going to be Luca and Tatum, right? Because they haven't won yet. But this is my take here. If Kyrie Irving becomes a multiple time title winner, I think his outlook, he's already beloved by players, right? It's really a niche fan base that doesn't like him for all the off the court stuff. All the on court stuff, he's really beloved. I mean, people forget he was really, really popular even in Cleveland before LeBron James. Uncle Drew, he had his own movie, right? It was a really big deal. And I think if he becomes a
Terrible, terrible movie.
multiple time finals winner, I think he's going to be regarded as one of the best point guards who's ever lived, which is insane. We would not be having this type of discussion with Kyrie Irving last year. But if he wins two or three, he's going to be with the not on the same tier as Magic and Steph, but he's going to be in that discussion, which is crazy to talk about because he's such a polarizing figure. But I think the easy answers obviously would be Luka and Jason Tatum, but their story is still being written, right? Luka's still only 25. Tatum's only 26. If Tatum loses this game, Boston's going to have the most playoff games played in the last 5 years without a title. Ever, 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 ever. Like, think about that. That means you've had so much success without winning. The next closest is the 2004 to 2009 Pistons that made 5 straight conference finals, right? But the caveat to that is they won in the year before. So they had a title already. This team, Boston, doesn't have one yet. So if he doesn't win, his legacy is going to be tainted a little bit, but so much can change at 26 years old. He can win the next 5, right? So it doesn't really matter. Whereas Kyrie, who is 32, this is probably going to be his best chance. Maybe one more year where he has a good chance. This is it for him. So if he can somehow win, and let's say he does it in a fashion where he's Finals MVP, or maybe in that discussion, maybe he hits another buzzer beater or a game-winning shot, because that game 7 in Golden State probably is the biggest shot in NBA history, right? If we come down to it, Kyrie Irving hit the biggest shot in NBA history. If he hits
Wow.
another one, if he hits
Hot
another
take.
one,
Hot
Yeah, if he
take.
hits another one,
Yeah,
then
that's
we're
fucked.
talking about
That's
like one of the
fucked.
clutchest players ever, right? So, yeah, my answer is gonna be Kyrie Irving.
Wow.
So I think he needs to play a lot better in quarters 1 through 3. I mean, his fourth quarter, obviously, when you're a fourth quarter player, you get blown up like Damian Lillard. That's why he skyrocketed because of his big shots he's hit. But I think it makes him a little bit overrated, if anything. Yes, those moments matter, but it's I think they matter way more for the best of the best. But that's could be a really simple take, sure, but when it comes down to it, I probably agree, Kyrie Irving, just because he is the oldest guy here that a title would mean the most to him, even though he already has one. Tatum and Luca, they're going to be in this thing for many, many years to come, and I think their teams are built to continue to grow as long as both of them stay healthy. Kyrie Irving, I do think, man, like I have him borderline top 10 all time. Like I'm looking at my all time rankings. I pulled them up here
Wait,
and
all time point guards or all time?
point
Okay,
guards,
okay,
point guards.
okay.
Yeah,
I was about
absolutely.
to
So
say.
like to throw him in the top 3 after this, no, he won't pass John Stockton. He won't pass. Uh, maybe you can get him up to like say right now I have him down number 12-ish. I mean, right in the Walt Frazier, Gary Payton area. Jason Kidd is number 10 for me.
If
I
he
mean, if
if he
he
wins
wins,
two, if he wins two, Zach, isn't he in the top five with Isaiah Thomas?
I mean, it goes Magic, Steph, Isaiah, Oscar, John Stockton still ahead. I mean,
Two titles to
no.
zero, man. I don't know. That's tough.
Yeah,
John
but like
John
Kyrie's never
Stockton,
done it as if he gets the MVP, then maybe we can
yeah,
talk. I
yeah,
mean,
true.
but if you get the MVP here over Luca, that's
And Tatum,
that's
yeah,
all time shit, and that's
yeah.
like out of nowhere. So yeah, it jumps a lot. I probably would have taken him for the career over Russell Westbrook because I mean Russell's up there with his MVP and the triple doubles. Um, if he wins another, but right now I still have Westbrook ahead of him. Um, Chris Paul's a tough one. So you're right. I mean, he's not far off from top 5. It's just when I heard those top 2. So yeah, I'll give you that. I mean, he can get close to the top 5 here, which is insane, like almost a
Yeah.
eight player jump all time. And then from like a ranking standpoint, I have him in the 70-ish tier, like 65 through 75. And I think that he could almost crack top 50 with another type, really do, which is wild to think, and almost into that 40 range. Where Luca and Tatum, I mean, Luca with the title here, he's in that top 15, 20 range already. I mean, he's competing in that regards. I mean, uh, right now, I mean, if he doesn't win the title and he plays just decent, he's probably right around the 30-ish area. I mean, until he gets an MVP, and then you can get higher than that. I mean, you need an MVP to be in that top 20 all the time. But a finals MVP to me, and doing everything else Luka does, is way more important. Like people don't value finals MVPs enough. I will pound that home. And if you're an all-time great player, you don't need regular season MVPs if you're collecting finals MVPs. I
Preach,
appreciate that.
preach.
Yeah, it's one of my biggest anger points when it comes to the all-time debates, final MVPs versus regular season MVPs. Tatum, though, I mean, I need more efficiency because he didn't have that throughout the playoffs here. So this run really will matter for him, but his team will take it, I mean, down a notch when you're really breaking it down. So he needs to have a really efficient finals to really get into that like top 40, 50 all-time convo. He's still around the 60 range. I mean, there's where my legacy talk ends, but that's just my overview, and it's gonna be fun to see how this plays out because all those things matter. Me and Al like these top all-time
Yeah, we love the
talks. I mean,
historical. Zach, Chris, if I could jump in real quick. Rest in peace to Bill Walton, because One of the things I
Here we
really
go.
remember growing up when he was on NBA on NBC with Steve Snapper and Mike Fratello. Um, they were talking about MVPs, and I was like, I don't know, 9 or 10 years old at the time. They were talking about MVPs, and I think it was either Karl Malone winning that year, or maybe it was Charles Barkley. I forgot what year exactly. But basically, Bill Walton cut into the conversation, right? He made Steve Jones stay quiet. He made Mike Fratello stay quiet. He basically said the Finals MVP is the MVP. And ever since he said that, it's really resonated with me because that's what you want. You want to be the champion and you want to be the best player, the reason why your team is the champion. Sorry, go ahead, Kris.
No, well said. I
I
get
love
chills, man.
that. I love that. Yes, R.I.P. Bill Walton. We have not had a conversation about him on the show, but I think we're best off leaving that to people who knew him, who met him, who have amazing stories to tell about him. Um, I think it was Chris Carino who tweeted out like before a broadcast they did together one time. Bill was like, "We just got to have fun, man, because if we're not having fun, no one listening is going to have fun." And that was something that, affected Carino forever, which is awesome. But I do think we'll pivot now, no pun intended. I know it's a basketball show, to our predictions for the series. And of course, your finals MVP prediction is going to line up with your actual prediction. And since we're talking about the finals MVP award, the weight of it, what it means, let's just do it all at once. So I am going to start with Zach here. I want to know the team that will win this series, how many games they're going to win it in, and who the finals MVP, presumably from that team, unless you think Luka's pulling a Jerry West, will be. What do we got, Mr. Noble?
Yeah, if LeBron didn't win one of those finals MVPs, it's never happening again, unless somebody averages like 45. Um, Luka could do that. He could do it, but you need to win um, 2, 3 games with that too. That's just such a hard combination, especially when you got Kyrie Irving and yeah, I just don't see that. But anyways, I'm gonna go Jason Tatum and Boston in 6. Pretty simple, straightforward. Uh, y- I'm
Okay.
not I'm not gonna be harsh if you do say Jalen Brown because I do like the odds on him. I definitely say sprinkle a little bit on Jalen Brown Finals MVP just to get some value on the betting scene.
But like, nah, that's one of those things where I'm like, his odds are good for a reason. You know what I mean? Like it Tatum, if the Celtics win, it's going to be in part because Tatum shows us all who he is. And I think that will be a loud statement that would earn him the finals MVP. But Zach, you
One
have
quick point.
go for it.
Uh, People argue that Brown has actually been better from this playoffs. It hasn't been close. Tatum's been way better overall. I went back game by game. Who's had the better games? It's 9-2 Jason Tatum better games. You can argue the rest of the games. So there's not an argument who's had the better playoffs.
I
I
love that.
agree with that. I
Al,
guess I'll go through my prediction. So I do think Boston's gonna win this. I think my favorite bet is over 5.5 games. I think we talked about this last week, and it was
we
at
did on our live show.
minus 145. It's up to minus 165, minus 170. I still think it's a good bet because I think it's going to be a competitive long series. Knock on wood, we don't want to see any injuries with our star players, right? Knock on wood there. Um, but the argument for Jason Tatum is even if Brown and Tatum have the same stats, we got to see who the voters are. But the narrative is just going to be overwhelmingly pro Jason Tatum. So I agree there. I think that's a lot of value. And Tatum is averaging double digit rebounds. I think that's going to get lower now with Kristaps back into the lineup. The other, again, this is not a betting show, but another look that I like is Drew Holiday's under rebounds, just because he's going to be the primary defender and Kyrie on the perimeter. I don't think he can contest the shot and grab the rebound. So I like his under rebounds per game there. But unfortunately, even as a Dallas Mavericks fan, I'm hoping for a competitive series, but Boston is the better team. They would be the justified winner if Dallas somehow pulls it out and wins 4 straight series as an underdog, then they deserve it. But they are, in my opinion, the clear-cut underdog in this series.
Okay, my turn. I Not just because I want to be different from y'all, but because maybe I'm overcorrecting, right, for doubting Dallas in the conference finals and it maybe even a little bit in the round before, but not against OKC. Um, I'm gonna go the Dallas Mavericks in 7 games.
Damn.
I'm going to go with the storybook ending, the 7 game series in the NBA finals. Listen, you guys know I love a good storyline, just like the next guy, but I really do think this series will be drawn out. I think we see a blowout or two in either direction, right? Like I can see the Mavericks winning a game 112-92 in this final series. I can see the Celtics winning a game um 110-92, right? Like I think this goes back to what Al was talking about earlier. The amount of 3-pointers that these two teams shoot. You guys know my favorite example, the Indiana Pacers. They'll score 40 points in 8 minutes and go scoreless in the last 4 minutes of the quarter. Like, I do think we're in an era of the NBA where that shot variance is more apparent, visible, loud than ever. I think the clutch shot making, whether and the clutch, but overall the tough shot making from Dallas's top 2 guys is going to be what moves the needle for them here. I'm trusting the role players to finish off this run. They've been bought in to what Coach Kidd is selling them from the second they got to Dallas. PJ Washington, integral part of this team. I have long said he is someone who a serious team should pluck away from Charlotte. I also said the same about DeLon Wright in Washington. Obviously, I think everyone agrees Caruso in Chicago is probably the next guy on that path if he gets dealt. Like situations, everything, and Dallas had the perfect situation for these guys. I'm so curious to see how Kristaps plays upon his return, but even more so than that, I'm curious to see just if Dallas can pull off another upset. I think obviously odds aren't everything, but to keep beating them, to keep beating the odds, to keep going out there and just getting buckets. Like I was joking on the live show. I sound like, ball don't stop, but um just out there getting deep in your bag, getting buckets. And Al, you were saying Luka plays bully ball in the playoffs and his shot making, his ability to hit tough shots through and over defenders, the circus shots, the 3-pointers, whatever it is. I think this is the run for him. I think this is that Giannis Jokic style run for him that propels him from guy who some people are super high on and others are like, oh, he's done nothing to deserve that in winning situations in the playoffs. And this is the one that shuts them up. So I'm going to go with the Dallas Mavericks in 7 games. And I am going to take Luka Doncic as the finals MVP. Kyrie is the cute pick, in my opinion. You're getting too cute if you're picking Mr. Irving. He's been fantastic these playoffs. It's Luka Doncic, the guy who's going to get it done. Really quick, y'all. Game 1 tonight. One word answer. Who wins tonight? Al, I'm starting with you.
Boston first half.
Oh, you coward. Does it every
I
time.
don't
It
trust
works.
I don't trust them closing games.
No
So
lead
I
in the
mean,
game.
I know we have to be quick, but if it goes 7, I like Dallas. Go ahead.
Zach.
So no full game bet for Albert. All right. Love it. Hit that bet. Yeah, I'd probably lean Boston -6, but not confident in it. That's a big line. I think it could go either way. Game 1 could go either way tonight.
Even if the Celtics win, Give me the Mavericks tonight in game 1. They love stealing them on the road. And that will wrap us up here on All Things NBA. Thank you all so much for tuning in to our official finals preview. Stay tuned, subscribe, thumbs up, like, 5 stars, you name it, and we'll catch you next time.